Well, the ancient name for Lincoln is Lindum, which means pool by the hill. The Lyn bit, pool, is the same as Dublin. It's the same ancient word, and of course Dublin means black pool. But later on, when the Romans came, Lindum, the word Colonia was added, and Colonia is a place where Roman soldiers retired, and then it got corrupted into Lincoln over time. And so Lincoln was a very important port for trading, but the problem was that it's quite a long way inland, and the Fosdyke started to silt up, and Lincoln lost a lot of its trade to Boston. And in fact, by the 16th century, the Brayford was very neglected. Lincoln had declined really as a town. It hadn't really grown much actually since the Middle Ages. But then in 1744, they re-dredged the Fosdyke, and that was the catalyst for quite a lot of growth, because Lincoln was now linked to the main canal network and the River Trent. Coming of the railways in the 1840s to Lincoln did have an impact on canal traffic. But fortunately, from the Brayford's point of view, with very heavy materials like coal and grain, it was still economically viable to bring it in by barge, in fact much more so than on a train, because obviously a barge can carry a lot more weight. And so the Brayford did actually continue as an inland port, right into the 20th century, right into the 1930s and 40s even. And there were a lot of businesses alongside the Brayford, including Hovis's mill. They brought grain to the mill, and Dickinson's mill. In the 19th century, there was actually an iron works as well, called Harrison's Malabor Iron Works, and that stayed open until the 20s, and it's now student accommodation. Eventually, of course, a railway and road took the Brayford's traffic away, because even for things like grain and coal, it was no longer viable. It went by railway or by road. And so by the late 50s and early 60s, the Brayford was very neglected. It was also full of mouldering old barges as well, because rather than just towing them away and breaking them up, people just left them to moulder in the mud. And there was even talk in the late 60s of actually sort of tarmacking the entire thing over and turning it into a car park.
I'm John Davidson. I'm the Company Secretary of the Brayford Trust, and we are at the moment in the Trust's office, which is a porter cabin adjacent to the pool. Back in 1969, when the Trust was formed, the scene would have been very different. The north and east banks were basically warehousing, and the south bank was a railway marshalling yard. The pool itself was badly neglected, on the verge of being a swamp, with derelict boats, which were a significant eyesore. And the Trust was actually formed by a group of private sector businessmen to deal specifically with the problem which no one else was addressing. About 2 years ago, we dredged part of the pool to install some new moorings, and at that time the dredgings were tested before they were placed on the Canal and River Trust tip down the canal at Fiddler's Elbow, and were found to be perfectly acceptable. We don't tend to have significant problems with litter, except in some locations around the margins of the pool. And we do clear that from time to time. And once a year, very helpfully, the Students' Union organise a litter picking exercise and remove a great deal of the waste on our behalf. However, the problem we do have is silting, which is becoming more and more prevalent. And the problems that causes is that it encourages weed growth, which of course is a problem to the boaters because it fouls their propellers. And the silting of course means that there's less depth in the pool for them to moor their boats. We are wholly dependent on income from the boaters for the future maintenance of the pool. So it's a vicious circle really. We need to dredge to generate the income, and we need the income to be able to dredge. There is no fixed programme for dredging. The Trust as it's currently constituted was reorganised in 2006, and it has now set aside a sinking fund for future dredging, which we hope will be sufficient as and when dredging is required. Otherwise, we only dredge when we have dredged in the past 2 years, and some 5 years before that, in areas of the pool where we've located new moorings. The silt is, by arrangement with the Canal and River Trust, taken down the Fosdyke to a place called Fiddler's Elbow and deposited there. The building noises you can hear are basically on the adjacent site, which is being redeveloped by the university for student accommodation. It's a development they call Signet Wharf, and it has resulted in some disruption to the Trust's activities, because we used to have a permanent office in the building where the building site now is, and also our car parking was where the building site now is. So our boaters now have to park some 400 yards distant down Campus Way, and we're temporarily located in this porter cabin. When the building programme is finished, we'll be allocated new offices in the ground floor of the new development, but the car parking will remain where it currently is, and that has been a problem to us and is likely to be a problem in the future. If you can imagine a boater coming to visit his boat and maybe take it out for a week or a fortnight, they have a lot of things to bring down: food, supplies, sometimes fuel, gas, that sort of thing. And it's difficult for them to bring it 400 yards down Campus Way to put it on their boats. Hopefully in the new development we will have a couple of temporary parking spaces where people can come, make their drop off and then take it down to the permanent car parking while they're away. At the moment, opposite us on the north bank is a redevelopment of the previous Mill House offices, which is going to be restaurants and flats, which we think will be a benefit to the pool. The remainder of the pool actually is now pretty much developed.
The Brayford's the oldest inland harbour in the UK, so it's always brought boats and that sort of traffic to the city. It's a bit of a gem, I think. I'd like to see it utilised more. In terms of the future of the Brayford, I'd like to see it just improve for people to enjoy it more seating around it, more grass banking, stuff like that, you know, as in seating for the public, you know, more sort of, if possible, grass banking, for people to lie on and, you know, take in the sun and look at the pool. I think the Brayford's doing, and the River Witham and the Fosdyke Canal that it's attached to is quite healthy. Obviously there's a lot of building work goes on, but I mean that only restricts the sun that gets to the pool, which is a bit unfortunate, but there's nothing you can do about it. It seems in quite a good state apart from it needs dredging very badly. Simply the responsibility of the Brayford Trust. So it's only the boaters that pay rents on the boat that earns the money to do anything to the pool, and to dredge it is £1 million.